Hey guys, what's going on? Alan here, and you're watching the Gibson Garage YouTube channel. But we're gonna get this motor swapped in my son's Chrysler 300. It's just a limited. It's just a V6 3.5. If you guys remember the last video, I bought this after finding out that the timing belt had busted and the valves had made contact with the cylinders, and it was just, you know, going to require a whole bunch of rebuild and stuff like that. Yeah, so after I bought it, I decided I was going to see if I could find a motor from the junkyard and just try to get it going. You know, why not? I got this from the junkyard for just over 200 bucks. Heads alone are like 500 bucks a piece if you just wanted to get remanufactured heads, or you could spend nearly that same amount of money piecing the heads together yourself, sending off the machine shop. But so it just wasn't worth it, considering the price of a whole new, or you know, a used one from the junkyard. Like I said, just over 200 bucks. And the trick was, you gotta look for a car that's wrecked, not one that's looking good, sitting there, none of the body panels are damaged. And I'm like, well, why is it in the junkyard? But you see one with a big horseshoe shape in the front of the bumper, like it made contact with the pole. You know, it was running real good right up until that point. So you can actually see here, there's some contact. The front cross member ran into that. The cross member was touching the bottom of the oil pan here. The alternator mounts right here. It actually, the radiator hit the alternator, shattered the alternator casing, shattered this timing cover. Kind of pushed it all this way, blew out this boss. So I'm gonna have to reuse this whole timing cover from his motor. This thing was hit hard, real hard. There's a crack in two of these spokes from the radiator hitting up against it. This is broken, obviously. I know there's really a concern for, you know, did I smash the bearings in there, or did I smash? I didn't wreck it. You know, are the bearings going to be okay on the crank after the impact? But we'll see. Like I said, 200 bucks or so. Actually, when I get my core back, which I might not even do, it's like 30 bucks, and then I got to drive to Chico, which in the gas in the Suburban and back, it's not even worth it. I'll just keep my core and rebuild it or something, you know. So what I want to do is pull the motor out, get it side by side with this one, swap all the parts we need to swap over, throw it back in as simply as possible. I did already clean out this motor with the air gun. I took out the spark plugs. Intake manifold is off. The lower intake manifold is already off. And I haven't checked for official compression, but I sprayed some PV blaster in the spark plug holes, spun the crank with a drill. Sounded like it had good compression shooting out of the spark plug holes real nice. You know, sounded all the same, sounded normal. And I did check to see that it spun too at the junkyard before I even ripped it out. Because what I need to do is take off this pulley and get this front cover and the timing and stuff off of here in preparation for the other timing cover and a new timing belt kit at the same time. While I got the motor out, I'm gonna completely revamp it. I'm gonna drop the oil pan, make sure there's nothing floating around at the bottom of the pan. Intake, exhaust, gasket, spark plugs, pretty much everything that's serviceable before I throw it in there. And of course, this has got a big hole drilled in the bottom of it, so I'll need to get a new filter and an oil change. This came out of another 2006 Chrysler 300 that was blue. This thing wasn't taken care of the best. These coil, all of these were stripped out, I think, except for two. Let me just hold down the coils, and for some reason these two tubes here are sticking above the valve cover when all the other four are flush or just below flush. So we're going to take a look at that, probably swap valve covers depending on, you know, hopefully his aren't stripped out either. Here's that hole on the side and the damage it did here. Just just blew it out. That alternator, man. I was on a time crunch. I wish I would have taken the camera, but I wouldn't have had time to film. I pulled this motor out in the junkyard in like 3 hours by myself. Kind of went faster because they already had the exhaust cats cut off. They had the fluids drained. I don't care about any of the hoses. I'm just snipping and ripping, and the front bumper was mangled. I had to kick it and hammer it and, oh God, get that thing out of there. It was a lot of work, but I got it out of there in like 3 hours by myself. Alternator was smashed. Just the casing was just crumbled. It was all kind of just sitting in place until you moved stuff around, and then it fell. And then it was caked. I'm not sure if this is where it was wrecked, or maybe if it was stored after it was wrecked or whatever. But it's just caked in like farm dirt and hay, and you can smell the cow crap, you know, all in the front of the cross member, all over there. That's what all this brown dirt is probably from the wreck, because it was just caked in there. Alright, here's what I got so far. Oil pan's cleaned off, and the inside didn't look that bad either. Honestly, I probably could have gotten away with just filling it up with oil. There wasn't any debris in there. There was a couple flakes of stuff, but I think it was from me taking off the top end and cleaning out all the junk that was hanging out in the valley. Valve covers are cleaned off, not looking too terrible. There's the PCV side, so there's that, but we're rolling with it. I think the timing kit is brand new. Also, I think they might have done some work before they crashed it. I've got 6 brand new Duralast coils right here. They don't look old at all. This timing belt doesn't have a single crack. Not a one. This bearing is in perfect shape. You know what I mean? Perfect shape. It just feels brand new. Nice and greased up. The water pump, however, that bearing does not feel good. That one spins way too free, so I will do a water pump, but I'm going to reuse the timing kit. Those are the 2 front covers. There's the back side of the cover. You can see that's pretty much trashed. The bolt holes there blown out for the alternator. Thermostat's off. Cam gears are out. Got the surfaces cleaned off. I'm gonna get a new seal for this. I really wish there's a way around. I know this stuff's got to breathe. I wish it would just breathe into the atmosphere. But can you tell which head is the PCV head? Maybe. I pulled this one first. I was like, oh, this thing's clean. They did their oil changes at least. And then you come over here and you see this, which isn't the owner's fault, probably. It's just a result of the PCV valve being on this side. You can also see on this end, it's like ready to flake off. But over here on this end, it's just thick, like goo. So, you know, that is what it is. This surface is all cleaned off. There's a gasket on the back side of this. I think it's been leaking because of this junk here, but this gasket's original, definitely original. I don't think that's ever been taken off. I don't think the valve covers have ever been taken off this motor, the oil pan. I think it's the first time it's been cracked into that far. We're gonna clean off these surfaces now, or wipe the oil off that's been dripping onto them. I already kind of scrubbed them. I used a combination of a razor blade for the scraping, then the green stuff, and then this thing too. Oil pan really needed this guy. My main goal is to not pop the heads, is all. This is supposedly a running motor. I don't want to pop the head gaskets. I can't, you know, I can't pop head gaskets on something like that and not take it to the machine shop, and I don't want to spend that kind of money on it right now. All right, 2 days later, and I'm almost ready to pull this motor out of this car. That's taken a while because really I'm just slow, but we're about there. And the way I'm gonna do it, I had thought about different ways, and you know, first and foremost, I know it's a subframe car, 4 bolts. If you had a lift, that'd be the ideal way. And then you could support the subframe and cherry pick the motor right off the subframe. And that would be ideal, but I don't have that option. So I've had to go the very probably hardest way to do this. And I thought about pulling the transmission and the motor at the same time, but I didn't think you'd be able to get up and over this with it attached. And to remove this would mean removing these brake lines that run all the way across here, because if you remove this and just bend the brake lines out of the way, there's no point to that. But that's actually how I did it at the junkyard, how I got the old one out. This whole piece was crashed in and missing, really, and all I had to take off was the bent bumper and the radiator and AC condenser out, and I pulled the engine and transmission out as one, separated it on the ground. But that's not how we're gonna do it here. So there's a process to get to this far. First of all, to get the starter off, or to get to the wiring of the starter, because I wasn't sure how it even worked. I couldn't see on top of the starter and what was all connected. Either way, you gotta take the exhaust manifold off to get the starter out. Something's gotta come out, you know, either the steering column and the exhaust, and you go that way, or the exhaust manifold and you come up from the top. So that's just to get the wiring harness. That had to come out. I've got the power steering pump and the AC pump disconnected. Obviously you see the accessory drive is off. Alternator can stay on for now. I don't need to unbolt stuff I don't need to unbolt. This, I don't have the tool right now to disconnect it, so this is off and gonna sit up there when I pull it out. Harnesses off everywhere. Torque converter bolts. Now that was a B, man. Here's what I had to do. I couldn't get to the torque converter bolts through this little window. There's like a little window, a little plastic cover that covers this, and you're theoretically supposed to get to each torque converter bolt right there. Okay, but that just wasn't happening. The torque converter bolt's like way up here, just with the subframe in the way. You can't go straight up at it. There's a subframe right here, then there's a rack right here. Now the rack I lowered, but still there's just not room for a socket and a swivel, and I don't have anybody to help me hold this thing still. You know, hold the crank still while I'm trying to spin, you know, break it loose by hand. I took off the oil filter adapter. First of all, you're gonna need a heavy duty 12 mil. This slides up in here like that, and that's how you take off the adapter. This adapter here that goes right up through the center of that and bolts to the block underneath, or bolts to the oil pan, I should say. And you got to take that off so you can get all the oil pan bolts off. There is a way, I mean, you can kind of get a wrench and sneak, you know, or where would it be? It'd be over here. These 3 bolts don't want to come all the way out, but you can get them as far as you can where they touch that adapter, and then, I don't know, make them the last 3 bolts and then work them out as you work the pan down. I didn't want to do that while under here on my back, but removing that pan allowed me to get a straight shot at the bolt there. And I've already got one off. I can use the impact now. Straight shot with the impact, and it doesn't send my sockets flying all over the place. All right, it is out. Highlight added. I didn't add a highlight anyway. This 3.5 from the junkyard came off of a Chrysler with the NAG 1 transmission. Same transmissions in my Hemi, in my Magnum. That has the NAG 1, which has that slap shift feature. This one, I realized, is not that NAG 1 transmission, and there is no slap shift feature down there, if you can see in that window. So I think the difference is that's a 4-speed, and this is you know, the NAG 1's a 5-speed. So that means these are different. This has the flywheel here that came off of the back of this motor, has 3 spots with 2 bolts, 1, 2, and 3 for the NAG 1 transmission. This one has 4 single bolt spots. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna have to use this. I'll have to take this off and put it back on that motor. Shouldn't be a big deal. That shouldn't mean anything. I don't know what dictates, you know, which car gets which transmission. And also, I probably wouldn't be able to just put in the NAG 1 transmission. Obviously, I'd have to switch out that shifter, some parts of the shifter mechanism, if not everything of the shifter mechanism. But with the computer, you know, would it work with the computer that's in there, or would I have to pull that out of whatever car that transmission came out of too? But that's not really a big deal for him. He's going to drive it either way. So I'm going to give this a cleanup. I was going to time lapse the motor coming out, but I forgot, sorry. But we can take this motor apart now and really see what kind of damage was done. As you can see here, I'll spin the crank, but the camshaft, look in this hole here. I'll spin. Oh, no spinning. Belt broke, there's damage. Well, here it is. Jesus. I don't know. Is all this from the belt, or was there Mises? No, Mises can't get in here. There's no way. It's completely sealed off. Except for, no, I did that. I just did that. This belt is shredded. It's everywhere too, man. Like, what? How does that even happen? Carnage. So bad. I thought there was rat poop in here at first. I swear I thought it was rat poop. But it turns out it's a bunch of teeth. It's all just teeth to the belt. There's no way rats can get in there. It's sealed tight. So it's like it's split and then sheared off all the teeth on one piece of it. And then of course it broke. Oh man. I just want to get it out. I just need the timing cover. Oh, it's so bad. I can't believe I was able to rotate this. That's what's left of the timing belt. Jiminy. That thing was toast anyways. Look at how easy that spins. Even though it happened. It's probably just old belt, because this bearing is too loose. That bearing's way too loose. That actually moves. There we go. That thing's shot. So it's probably running original. That's terrible. That spins way too good. Yeah, it's probably original and just gave up the ghost. Well, I'm gonna get this cleaned up with the vacuum because I don't want to breathe this stuff in. I don't want to blow it. Alright, so here's where I'm at. Gasket sets just came in. Blocks all cleaned off. I've got all the other aluminum parts over here cleaned up. Except for the back of that, I still gotta run the wheel on that. And here's all the parts we're gonna use. We got, starting with the gasket set, this big one and these two little ones are what you're gonna need for the back of the, to replace these guys for the back of the timing cover. They're gonna go right there, those three spots. And then you got the water pump gasket, of course, for the other side of that timing cover, right there. It fits in the water pump. This is not going to be used. Apparently, there's an aluminum housing, rear housing version, but I have a stamped steel with the seal that is vulcanized onto it. So you have to buy the whole thing. It's like 55 bucks, but it's not leaking, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. Went to Molly for the actual MLS. The Felpro version were just like a composite. I didn't want to use that. I'll stick to MLS. The intake manifolds are basically similar to factory. New thermostat housing. We're going to reuse the original thermostat. 6 more E3.58 plugs because I like the way the Dodge is running right now. They seem to be running great. So Mopar oil filter, some Valvoline synthetic, Duralast water pump. The only thing is, this is an aluminum fin when the original is plastic, and the plastic ones go further up, create more of a taper, more turbine-y goodness, you know. I think if I had the time, I would probably go to the dealer and see if I could get the original style with the plastic fins that went further up the snout. This original housing here came off of the junkyard motor, and I know it's original because it's got these tabs hammered into the side right here, which is something the book specifically mentions. I don't remember what they say about it, but they show a picture and they're there. Compared to this one, which had a Dorman part number on it, I'd rather use the original. And then I did test both thermostats in a pot of water. They both opened and closed at the same time. So I'm just going with the one that's cleaner. So you'll line up the tab, and then those indentions that they put in there are meant to center it left to right, I think. I'm going to cover both sides of the gasket, just the metal part of the gasket in the RTV, because that seam, that's about all they had, was just a super thin layer, enough to hold this in place while it got bolted up almost. But there was material on both sides, so make sure you get gasket material on both sides of the gasket. And another thing to note is make sure that this goes up towards 12 o'clock, that little brass nipple there, that's a bleeder, an air bleeder. And if they notched it right, it should only go in one way. I just filled it in with this gray RTV, smeared the O-rings around there a little bit. Gonna let it tack up just a little, and I'll slap it on the front here. So one of those small O-rings in the kit goes to this guy. I haven't found out where the other one goes to yet. Alright, put in some of these E3s. Those are nice. Make sure there's no extra washers. Oh, that almost kept my finger. I was in the other one and found the crush washer still in the bottom of the spark plug well. I'm going to go with the Duralast coils that came with the junkyard motor. They've got extra silicone on them, so that's going to help out a lot. Okay, got the motor hanging here. Everything put back together. I got passenger side motor mount on, and the no, that's the driver's side. No, that's passenger side. Jesus, I'm just turned around. Goes this way. We'll leave this off so we can get the starter back in. I'm gonna leave this half of the motor mount off just so it doesn't scrape the wall. I did get a couple scrapes on the way out. I'm not super excited about, but it is what it is. $1,000 used car, a couple scrapes here. Not stoked about that, but we'll live. We'll move on. It's pretty clean in here. It's not too bad. Like, it's not too bad at all. It's a little dusty around there still, but it'll be all right. It's a lot better. It was full of rat crap. The flywheel here, some Loctite ready to go on. I am reusing the old bolts. I don't care. It's going to be just fine. It's not like super high horsepower. I just got to make sure this is clocked the same way the other one was, with it at top dead center. You can see, or at least when mine did, yeah, I left a stain right there. If you can, if it focuses, there's a stain of a circle right above this hole. It's like a stain right there. It's kind of hard to tell. But what that's from is this hole here where it sat half covered over that hole, like so. See how it sits half covered over, and it left a stain right there, so that's how I know it's going to go back. And the other engine left the same stain, and with both at top dead center, I made sure that, you know, the orientation of these things were of this ring, which is the crankshaft sensor ring, we're in the same spot. I don't know if I talked about that already, but that would be terrible for that to be different and then cranking and not know why. But we're gonna get that on, tightened on, and we're gonna start dropping it down. I've already got the transmission elevated, ready for marriage. All right, it is mated to the transmission. I got just like the 4 top bolts in right now. I don't even have the motor mounts in yet. They're both floating just like that. So I'll lower it down till those, well, I don't have to lower it down. I can just do that, and one stud's still in the frame. So I'll get those on, and then we'll lower it down into place, get the starter in, AC, power steering, start putting stuff together. All right, it's the next morning. Motor mounts are on this time. 4 bolts are tightened on top. There's still the lower half of the bolts. Motor mounts on this side is in. So the first thing I want to do is get the transmission bolt tightened up. Then I want to lock down those motor mounts and transmission mount. Then we'll put on the starter on this side so we can feed the wiring in on this side. Then we can put on the exhaust manifold and then this stuff. Then the rest of the wiring. Well, that's annoying. I overlooked something here. I got the wrong oil pan. I got to use the original oil pan that came on this car that bolted up to this 2R4L or whatever it is, not the NAG one. See that right there? That's supposed to line up with that. This transmission is for the, or this oil pan is for the NAG 1 transmission. This is a NAG 1 bolt pattern. I gotta, luckily I didn't tighten these. So I'll pull the rack back down, let it hang, get the pan back off. Now I gotta get that guy back up in the air to get the pan off. Hi, Cody. Come here. Well, a little bit of a setback. I was gonna bolt up the bottom bolts and realized that the pan bolts no longer match up to the transmission bell housing. I was just shocked. I didn't realize that was something I just overlooked. So it also gives me an opportunity to now throw in these 4 torque converter bolts. I got some fresh little thread locker on them, so I'll throw those in while the pan is off. And it sucks too, because actually these two ears hang lower than my two ears. My bolts pattern is more square or rectangle. This bolt's down here, and then this bolt's up here, so it's more rectangular. Because it hung so low, I couldn't get it out off the motor. I couldn't get it over the subframe. I had to take this motor back off of the cherry picker, put it on the stand, wheel the cherry picker in, lift the motor back up so I could get the pan over the subframe. And now it's back down. Now I'm putting the torque converter bolts on. Okay, we had a little setback. I broke off torque converter bolt inside, but I was lucky enough to get it out. So I had to call the Dodge dealership to get the right one. Very shallow head. These are an M10, a metric 10 by 1.5 thread. If you go to look it up, all the ones, well, the first option has a tall hex head with a flange on it, and that's too tall. It has to be very shallow head like this. And that's actually, I've got one. It's this part number here, the 14040 GM torque converter bolts. But as you can see, that tall flange will not let it spin. I already tried it, trust me. It won't rotate. It is the right thread, but too tall of a head. So I called the Dodge dealership up and they had it. It's a 42 RLE specific bolt. So the pan's not gonna go on yet until I get those parts. So I guess I'll just try to button up the top of it. Well, I tracked down some bolts. Yeah, I told you, right? In the meantime, I've got the exhaust starter in, exhaust manifold on. You can't see anything in there. Exhaust manifold's on. I just need to tighten it up and put on the dust shield. I've got to tighten the rest of the transmission bolts. After I get the pan on, I'll go around and tighten everything. But we're pretty much done for the night because we're waiting on torque converter bolts. And if they give me a part number from the dealership, which I'm sure there will be one, I'll list that in the description below. See you in the morning. Well, I got the bolts, and let's see. Here's the part number. Kind of a special part number, or a long part number. So let's get these guys in. I'm gonna look in the book and see what the torque is. Say drive plate to torque converter. 05 and 06. And only 31. And while we're here, 148 for the flange nuts and bolts. Out with the old, in with the new. Should be able to tighten this without even moving the block. Whew. Well, I'm done underneath finally. I got the torque converter bolts tightened. I've got the oil pan on, the rack and pinion in, the exhaust buttoned up. Nope, I didn't do the two rear bolts where the Y comes together. Almost done underneath, but I mean, it's looking good under here. I just gotta go back and do those two bolts way back there where they come together, those pinch bolts. Then I can let the car down. No, I almost forgot again. Wait, did I do motor mounts? I did the motor mounts. Yeah, we're good. Well, as you can see, car's back down on the ground. Everything underneath is buttoned up. Just gotta go around and do the wiring harness. Already started hooking up a couple things. I gotta just tighten this. I still have to go around and hook up the fuel injectors. I got the bracket in the back on with the wiring harness kind of sitting in place. The pipe I'm going to put on, well, I'll put on later after I put on the intake. First I need to get the 4 of these bolts back out of the intake so I can bolt this down, but I need to take a little break right now and get me a snack. So I'll be right back. Okay, we got the battery hooked up. Got some coolant in it. I even bled a little bit here. Actually, let me tighten that back up. But AJ's gonna do the honorary first start here. All right, buddy, hit it. Okay, hold on a sec. It doesn't sound like a good motor to me. Try again. When it fires up, let off. Go ahead. Okay. Try again. I mean, might not be getting gas. Hang on one second. Let me try some starting fluid. You know what? Actually, hit the gas pedal a couple times. You got the key on? Huh? Hit the gas pedal. All right, try it again. Try hitting the gas pedal when it fires up. We got some movement. There's some valve train noise. Open up the throttle. Okay, start it. Hit the gas when you do that again, but not just try to keep it alive. Don't go full throttle. Hold on, not so high. Let off. We got some valve train noise. I think it might be spark fuel injectors, but it's running. Let me get some of the cap on that. Well guys, I don't think that's a knock. I think it sounds the same as when her car had a stuck injector. It's just not firing off. I'm gonna see if I can... I can't pull any of these, man. Can't get to them. Okay, those 3 are firing. And check this one. That made a difference. Wake up! Stop it! Well, that does it for this video. Finally, a motor swapping and running engine. Hey, you guys get. Go on now. It sounds like a stuck lifter, something in the valve train, which could, and it could just be a stuck fuel injector too, not firing. So I'll look into that. Maybe it just needs a heat cycle run through it. I don't know, but yeah, tell me what you guys think. Appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. Please hit the bell so you get notified of future stuff. And have a good day. All right, so it's 1,000 miles later, and this is what it sounds like. I didn't want to leave you running with that last clip. I'm in there editing, and I realized I left you hanging with a motor that wasn't running that well. I don't remember what I did to fix it, but we've got about 1,000 miles on it now. It's purring like a kitten, but just over 1,000. They just went and got some food. You can turn it off now. So a couple things to note after putting that many miles on it. It's actually a pretty solid car, except for the transmission. It's a big one. I think it's on its way out. It's chattering going up hills. Kind of sounds like you're on a rumble strip, you know, but other than that, you know, for 250,000 miles, the suspension's got a couple clunks here and there in the front, but they're probably original, so typical to need new bushings, not a big deal. So as far as the transmission goes, I kind of want to find out if I can swap in a NAG 1 in place of this 42 RLE. I don't know if I'm going to need a new shifter console or just that faceplate there. I also don't know if I need computers or not, or if it's all integrated in the transmission. That's all I need. I'll look into that because I think I'm going to be forced to make that decision sooner rather than later. But overall, I'm really happy with it. I've probably spent less than $1,500 in, you know, parts, and from beginning the motor swap to the end of the motor swap, which took me about 2 weeks, by the way. And that was at the end of January, pretty much, when I finished that. So it's been 2 months. It's about pretty much the end of March now. 2 months. I put out just over 1,000 miles, just probably under $1,500. I'm happy with it. It's a great car. So we're just gonna work on the little things here and there. I want to go get some Chrysler floor mats instead of those AutoZone ones. You know, just little things. Need to do some cleaning up on the black trim here. So we got Ian doing with his new car. He came over here and we were doing we got to do some rear control arms, and he's just cleaning up some trim while he's waiting on me. So keep an eye out. Hit that subscribe button, please, if you wouldn't mind. Hit the like button if you want to see some more videos on the Chrysler, and keep an eye out for more videos on the Chrysler because they are coming. I've had to replace like an EGR and something else, but that's gonna do it, guys. Have a good one.